Hey you, yeah, you, the one trying to make a video game. I've got someone here that can help you, and that someone is Intel, which is not a someone, it's a company. But this company, they are going to help you as if they were a somebody and a someone and also a something. Check out software.intel.com/gamedev to find out how Intel is making sure all the innovation in gaming continues to happen on the PC as part of the Intel Game Dev program. Again, that URL is software.intel.com/gamedev. Sign up and start something new. GamesBeat is looking back as part of our GamesBeat Rewind feature, where we're going to be doing a bunch of Game of the Year award categories, our full top 10 countdown later this week. You can check back for all that stuff. We're also doing all kinds of different articles and features looking back at the year that was. All right, let's get to this next topic. So this is the freshest gaming universes, or freshest new gaming universe is kind of how I put it. I'll kind of give a basic rundown of what this award is. It's a way to celebrate new IP without saying the words new IP, because I think it's such a clinical way of putting things. And it's also a way of saying, okay, this is not necessarily a new IP, but it came out of nowhere, or it was its breakout year for these very specific reasons of having this stunning addition to the gaming catalog in the form of its characters or its setting, things along those lines. So I'm gonna dive into the nominations real quick, and then we can start talking about this. Horizon Zero Dawn, Neo, Hellblade, Nier Automata, Torment: Tides of Numenera, Golf Story, Prey, Gorogoa, and PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Let me start with PUBG real quick, just kind of because I think I'll be okay maybe just dropping this. I would say that they did. It's kind of it haphazardly fell into establishing an interesting world. This game's still in early access. It will be until next week. And it has this vague Eastern European setting. They just revealed the desert map. I've been playing on that, and that really is awesome. The reason I would consider it for this category before I drop it is when you are in there and you are making your own stories. This is something we talked about a little bit before we started recording. You build memories in those physical places that the developers built around the map, and everything gets its own has its own character, and you remember doing things the next time you're there. You'll say, "Oh yeah, that's where I got into that really awesome fight with that dude for like 10 straight minutes, and we both died in the blue because we weren't paying attention anymore." And that doesn't happen in all of these games. I think I've been playing a little bit more Fortnite, and it doesn't have the same effect. The map doesn't have that same character, and so they definitely nailed that there. Although I don't even know if they realized why that happened. Although I don't know. At the same time, playing the desert map, maybe they did, because that desert map has been very good so far. But that said, it's not going to play with some of the other contenders here. So I won't feel like we have to get it over onto the final side here. So does anyone else want to take this away with one of their nominations?
Well, for me, I think it's for PUBG. It's the stories you tell. There's been so many from so many different people in so many ways. But going to the game I nominated, it's Torment: Tides of Numenera. Numenera is its own role-playing world. It came out a few years ago. It was started on a Kickstarter by Monty Cook Games. Monty Cook was one of the people at TSR who helped write Planescape, and which is my favorite of the Dungeons and Dragons role-playing settings, but is no longer supported. And this world, you're playing in it thousands and thousands of years later, after the world was technologically advanced, and then it goes through decay and cataclysms, and now as you adventure around, you discover hints of this old world, but at the same time, it's kind of a blend of magic and technology, but that magic, is it magic or is it technology? And it's just fantastic when we go through and explore things. One of the levels has you going through different orifices inside the belly of a beast to go to different worlds, which I just loved. Um, and it's a world that I definitely want to keep exploring and keep digging into.
Yeah, I could see that being one of the finalists here for sure. We can move that over. Is there any baggage from the old Torment game or anything like that that would make you reconsider? Okay,
No,
good. Yeah, that's good to
no,
hear.
no.
Let's see, Mike. Can you do Nier?
Yeah, Nier's weird because it's like it's not a new franchise, I guess, but I feel like for me and for a lot of other people, it may as well be, right? Because it felt like these games only had the series roots go back to the Drakengard games for PlayStation 2, which I don't think a lot of people played, and then there was a Nier game for Xbox 360, which maybe had a few more people playing. I don't know, but I feel like I never heard buzz about any of those games until this one. This was when I dropped into. Even though it is connected, it is far enough, like, separated timeline-wise, like, it's 100 years in the future thing. There's only a few references here and there to the old games that it kind of feels new. And that is what I liked about the game, was its setting did feel kind of fresh. I know I was trying to explain to you earlier on Twitter why I liked it, because you're not quite on board the hype train. It manages to be kind of solemn and a little dreary and drab, and maybe even a little moody, without going full-on Hot Topic. It almost kind of scratches that itch that the Kojima Metal Gear games used to for me, where it is a little weird and it is a little bizarre. Even Death Stranding, like, some people were kind of laughing when it zoomed in on Norman Reedus' mouth and the baby's there and he's giving a thumbs up. I kind of like that stuff in a weird way.
I love that.
And especially without the Kojimas for a bit, this really did scratch that itch and kind of push that need. And there is some intrigue in the world. There is this kind of, like, desolation of it, which I find interesting. Even compared to a lot of other sort of post-apocalyptic games, which sometimes try to, like, distill a lot of humor in it, or just kind of turns into Mad Max or something like that. This felt very different to me.
I think the soundtrack in Nier just made exploring the world that much more impactful. Like, if I can't really even separate the two in my mind, really, because it was just, they did it so well. Like, when you entered a new area, the way the music would punctuate it, and it just really made you feel like you were actually exploring a world, in the distant future.
Yeah, so I played through only the first ending, got the first credits, and I've only touched playthrough B a little bit. But I get what you're saying, Mike, about the desolation and them making a point with that stuff. It works enough for me that I don't necessarily disagree with it being on this list. My problems were more mechanical and entertainment wise. Like, I just wasn't entertained most of the time.
Do I get to finally hear
them? No, because I still don't feel like, because they don't pertain to my argument against why it shouldn't be on this list. I don't really feel that strongly about it not being here, because I get it. I get this part, especially the music. The music really is worth calling out and saying that when you consider this package as a whole, the thing that they are presenting to players, it really is impressive in those handful of ways. It's world and the music. I get that, and the character design. And the characters themselves are really good. They do stand out. And I think those are the things that kind of win you this category. So I'm not too against Nier being here. So I think that's one we can also move over. It does want to bring me to Hellblade, though, if you guys are okay with me moving on from Nier real quick.
I'm not okay with it, but I guess,
So I've started playing Hellblade very recently. And I think it's really impressive when you realize it's coming from an independent studio now at this point, a studio that's worked on a lot of these kinds of games before, or, big budget games before. But they are working in a time where they could think of every possible technological way of telling their story or making their game, and they are using it all. It is such a technically impressive game. In terms of its, the fidelity of the characters, and the way that they portray, mental health in a way that is, it doesn't feel it doesn't feel exploitative, and it also feels truthful in the way that the voices will come in from multiple sides of the 3D audio, or like some awful character from the main character's past, Senua's past, will come in as this sort of rumbly, tumbly visage from the side that's like vibrating, and it almost looks like maybe is that a real actor? I can't tell. It's so realistic looking. I think it might be, but it's almost
which is cool because at first I didn't think so. And it was really neat that they got to a point of performance capture where they can do that stuff, and it's not
right.
distracting.
Yeah, it's like I'm like, man, I think I can't. It doesn't matter in the end, because the point was it just made me like stop and like really observe what this character was doing, and I'm like, okay, this is some really, really impressive stuff. The game itself, I think maybe some similar stuff to Nier. I'm not enjoying the puzzles at all. The combat is, I could take it or leave it. It's very standard stuff. But they are doing such smart things with the tools available to them today that I think it's another game maybe worth calling out. I'm not sure if it's going to be better than Nier for this group overall, but I think it's right there in the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been enjoying it too as I'm playing it. I guess, I really can't disagree with what you say. I am more impressed with it in a sort of storytelling and visual way than I am mechanically, which is what a lot of people have kind of echoed.
And I think that's okay to a certain point. It's not going to be on my top 10 list probably for those reasons. That doesn't mean it's not worth. That's why we have these other categories. That's the whole reason we're doing this week. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Jason already mentioned his game. Yeah, Stephanie, why don't you give us yours?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about. So I don't know necessarily if this is going to make it to be number one, but I feel like it's worth mentioning Gorogoa, which is coming out, on the 14th, I think. And I think that it's worth mentioning because when you think of world building, you usually think of these like vast universes that you can explore and just like the expansiveness. But with Gorogoa, it's really interesting because it's contained. So, like, the story behind it, it's a puzzle game, but the basic story is that as a young boy, you see this, like, strange dragon, like, mystical creature called the Gorogoa. And the story follows this boy through his life at different stages as a young man, as an old man, as he tries to find this creature and like, make meaning of this thing that he's seen. And as you're sort of going through the different levels and solving puzzles, you see parts of the world and you see hints at mythology and you see hints at like culture. And I think it's really interesting the way Jason Roberts, the developer, sort of develops this whole world without really any words or any explanation and just kind of relies on familiarity. Like there are things like bus stops or, like living rooms or museums, but the objects in them are just slightly different enough and draw from just a wide variety of like architecture and different cultures that it seems like this weird mishmash of like alien, I don't know, like an alien culture that we really are actually not familiar with at all. And so it kind of like crafts this world that you don't really go out into and explore per se, but it really sort of like fires up your imagination about where this character actually is and what he's actually going through. And I think it's really impressive that it does that through a puzzle format and like a largely static format where you're just kind of seeing it in the background and occasionally interacting with it, but just sort of like leaving it there as just sort of a backdrop,
Yeah, I for this one and for Tides of Numenera, I'm wondering if we should have one or the other. Unless, because I would drop Nier, I think, for Gorogoa, and then Horizon Zero Dawn, which we'll get to in a second.
Sure, Nier already kind of has this weird condition of it kind of
exactly.
Not being
So I think we could probably maybe that's the answer right there. Okay, yeah, that's what we're gonna do here. Because we're at a disadvantage in these situations where we have two people who are passionate about two different games and no one else has really played them much. But when those situations arise, I typically like to kind of give advantage to those games because if people feel that strongly about them, I want to kind of get them on there. So let's
I also love Nier.
Well, you tell me
okay.
Gorogoa or Nier. That's fine.
I mean, I think Gorgo is just so it's so fresh, and the fact that this developer spent 5 years slaving away on this game, drawing, coding, doing everything, and it's just his brain in a game. I think it's like it's a pretty great experience.
I'm gonna try to play both of those games when I get some time over the holiday, I think. Okay, so Horizon Zero Dawn. Real quick, Anthony put Golf Story on here. I like Golf Story. Mike, you play Golf Story. It is doing a very good imitation of SNES RPGs, and it builds on it in some creative ways in terms of some good writing and solving everything with golf and building this whole story around golf. But it is Mario Golf one more time, so I think I'm okay not putting it on here. Horizon Zero Dawn. This is a game I'm trying to play through right now still. And I nominated it already because the thing that I'm really responding to the most is actually the universe, the world, the characters, the storytelling. I'll tell you one thing that just stuck out immediately is the various tribes that you meet in the game. The fact that this already feels like a really dynamic world with a lot of different political factions that all exist and all are bumping up against each other and all have their own belief systems. Is very compelling, and is one of the things that's kind of dragging me through everything else, because I want to find out more about this. And I think at the heart of it, maybe that is one of those. That's the key to actually winning this category, is to build a world so compelling that it justifies everything else. And I think that's what Horizon Zero Dawn has.
The world carries that game through. Carries it as in everything else isn't as good. But it really is super interesting. It is kind of like what I said with Nier, where it's post-apocalyptic, but in a very different and interesting way. It's almost kind of so far post-apocalyptic that we are kind of in that new world phase. There are still remnants of the old world here and there, but it's not like, a desert wasteland or something where people are obsessed about finding out the secrets of the past. It's like life has kind of moved on and gone on. And some of the people are more tribalistic than others, maybe. But it is a new world, and it does have that sense of discovery. And it is this. And there is something novel about kind of mixing this hunter-gatherer, early man society thing with these giant robots that are kind of walking around. And the scale of it too is really impressive.
And I would also say that it's out of all the games here, it's the one that has the biggest star. Like Aloy is a character that I think people will respond to for a very long time and will want her to get sequel after sequel because she is really well written and really well acted. And
almost more so than the other games we brought up. There's a ton of franchise potential.
Yeah, and that's maybe a cynical way of putting it, but I agree with you. I think the underlying factors that make it franchise potential is these really appealing aspects of its world and its characters. I think Nier Automata has some stuff there with 2B and 9S.
There will be more Nier games
for sure, but it's not the same exact thing. It's not the same sort of. This is the mascot that will be on the the next PlayStation box or whatever, which Aloy will be. Mm-hmm. So I do think that brings us to the finalists. I put Neo on here, but that was just in case someone wanted to talk about it. And Prey. Prey was kind of a reboot and a weird one itself. So let's talk about these three finalists. Torment, Tides of Numenera, Gorogoa, Horizon Zero Dawn. I feel like it's kind of me and Mike maybe pushing for Horizon, but I don't want to take that over. Do you guys want to make an argument for Gorogoa or Torment taking this category?
I'll let Steph go first.
I love Gorogoa, and I do think that in a non-traditional sense, it's done a great job of building a world, but it's not the same experience as being able to roam free range around something that's fully fleshed out. So I do think that puts it at a disadvantage. I still haven't played Horizon Zero Dawn, though I need to get to that this week. But just how memorable it is to people makes me think that it's going to be super worthwhile. So I think that if you guys are saying Horizon Zero Dawn is the best new universe, I'm totally okay.
Yeah, those are
with
things
that.
I don't usually respond to as well. Is the story and characters and games, I usually take or leave them. I'm a mechanics and systems guy, but Horizon is winning me over with that stuff. Jason.
So I would argue that Torment would get it, because even though it was from an existing role-playing game, tabletop role-playing game, the world, the way it's realized in the video game is not just huge, but it's amazing. It has a great deal of character, more so than most of the worlds you see in games. It does other things because of that character that I don't think you're going to see in Horizon, and it's got far more flavor to it because you're interacting with so many different characters and so many more characters. It's better written, and it shows just because from the work of two of the authors who are on it.
I could see some of that, but it also feels like it is a well, I guess Horizon could be as well, but a deviation of something that people have always liked. It's like, okay, here is our generic Dungeons and Dragons that we are finding ways to dress up and
oh no, it's nothing like that.
Okay, well, I mean, so how is it different? Like, what is it doing? And it's not just like, I don't want just like, oh, it's got a different setting. Like, what is it doing to really establish its own identity?
Well, because its identity. So the identity is essentially the identity that you're praising Horizon for. You know, the way it's building upon this old world. It does that same, except that old world is always present in different ways than it is just the robotic dinosaurs marching around. It's in people's DNA. It's in people's what you find. It's in the quest and how you interact with them. It's with the different areas and planes and worlds you can travel to. It's not just this one area of this one world as it's confined to in Horizon.
I'm not too passionate about defending Horizon here. If you are that passionate about Torment, Torment is another game I want to get to still, and I could end up agreeing with you. So maybe Mike, if you want to make an argument.
Yeah. I don't know. You seem to be kind of dismissive of Horizon's writing, but I thought that was a strong point of that game. I thought it was very well written. I thought, especially in a kind of a character level, they made a lot of those characters very interesting. Alloy, her father figure, even a lot of the minor characters, just the people who are kind of in charge of the Sun Kingdom. Also, I know Horizon obviously takes a lot of inspiration from those kind of Far Cry, the Tomb Raiders, but Torment is much more inspired by one specific game, right?
Well, it's people say, yeah, it's the spiritual successor to Planescape Torment, but no, what it is really the first adaptation of Numenera, the tabletop RPG.
Sure, but so again, there's a very direct inspiration. So in terms of like how impressive it is as a new universe, I mean, sure, it's new for gaming. I don't know, I would still very strongly, and again, I haven't really touched that one, Tides of Numenera, as much as maybe I should have. But I would still pretty strongly say Horizon for this category.
Yeah, I would totally say you're wrong.
All right, then we need a tiebreaker.
Here's my thing: I think it's very easy in these discussions to get into bringing down the other game, and I'm much more interested in building up arguments for why a game should win.
Oh, good guy, Jeff.
Good podcast, Jeff.
Okay, so here's where it differs to me is the variety of companions, their own. When you're talking about the strength of writing, you're writing essentially for what 3 or 4 characters in Horizon,
no way.
and that's it. Alloy, her mentor, and then a couple of the other people.
No, that's not right. I mean, I've already met like a dozen characters that I've had branching.
But are they omnipresent?
No, they're not omnipresent. No, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
but I mean,
well, you've got a full party in Torment.
Here's what real quick, Jason.
And those characters need that support. It
doesn't necessarily have to. You don't have to compare and contrast the two games. I just want to.
I
want you to build up an argument for this for Tides of New. Yeah, but not without having to say what it does better specifically than Horizon Zero Dawn.
Well, excuse me, but it seems like you're pissing on what I'm trying to do.
Don't be like you're being just like my wife when I try to say something.
I don't understand. I don't. You're pushing back at everything, bringing down my argument. So I don't understand what it is.
Basically, I just want to. I'm just trying to understand what you love about it because I want to love it.
I told you what I love about it. To me, it's a far better written game. It's got a much more interesting world that blends in millennia of different types of magic and technology with many more areas to explore, and stealth doesn't matter at all.
Well, I remain unconvinced. I don't know what has better authors means. I don't know. I tried to give you a chance to explain what made it better, and we didn't really get there. We have to end this podcast. Stephanie's got to get out of here. We all got to get out of here. So I think we're going to have to go ahead and give this one to Horizon Zero Dawn, just based on where we're going to have to leave this conversation. Who knows? I'll probably go play Torment, Tides of Numenera and be completely convinced. But just as it stands, based on my understanding of what we talked to here, this one's going to Horizon. That's going to do it. We really do have to run. That's going to end the podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I really appreciate it. We will catch you tomorrow with more. We got new topics coming up for the rest of the week before Friday, where we are going to do our top 10 and the game of the year. So stay around for that. We will be back soon. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you next time.